on Taiwan Talk this week. Canadian-Taiwanese singer Chynna Lewis began her career supporting singers including Ed Sheeran, Jessie Reyez, Charlotte Day Wilson, and Julie Black. But now she's striking out on her own and has begun to make waves as a contributor to the representation of Asian artists in the music industry. She shares her story in this week's edition of Taiwan Talk.
You know, the child of an immigrant story oftentimes is you're kind of just along for the ride and you don't really know that you have the power to reclaim your culture and your identity until you kind of leave your family a little bit and spread your wings a little bit. And so when I left and moved to Toronto, you know, I found myself just feeling like I was looking and searching for myself. And the more I dug into that, the more I found like I wanted to, you know, rediscover this huge part of me that is who I am, but kind of was dormant when I was living in Toronto, you know.
Okay, numerous Taiwanese Americans and Taiwanese Canadians I've interviewed in the past have fallen off the traditional path of I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a mathematician, I'm going to be a scientist. You're a singer. That's about as off the path as it's going to get. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's funny when you were saying that, I was shaking my head because I'm like, no, I wanted to follow, you know, the plan when I was younger, like junior high and high school, it was always, I'm going to be a dentist. That was like the thing I locked in on. I was like, dentist, that's where I'm going. And when I got to my last year of high school, I had gotten into a few different schools for both commerce and biology, so science related. And at the last second, I took a complete left turn. I took a year off school. I started playing at the local open mic. I started volunteering. I worked a job, and I thought, I want to go into music. And luckily, my parents were very, especially my dad, they were very supportive of me. So I found a school called Humber College in Toronto, and away I went. And so that's where the first sort of big turn in my life took. But up until then, I had expected, I'd gotten all my sciences and all my credits, you know, it was like, okay, this is where I'm going. And something in my gut was just like, I don't want this. And it's so expensive, like, to go to school for something I don't want, you know? So, yeah.
Okay. Was there one moment? Was there one incident? Was there something that happened to you that helped you find your voice?
So, in this search during high school, in grade 12, when you're, like, in that process of figuring out, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Which is so much pressure. I was, you know, getting all my academic credits and everything ready, and my dad could tell that I was so torn. And he and I started going to this open mic together. So he was actually performing at this open mic. So I went with him, and, you know, I was really in love with just being around that scene and, like, playing a song or two here. And, like, the open mic owner was like, well, Chynna, maybe when you can come up here and do, like, a full set someday. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And during that very sort of turmoil time, I came into my house one day, and there was an acoustic guitar case with a card written that my dad went and got me an acoustic guitar. And he said, you know, wherever you want to go, I'm behind. Mom and dad are behind you 100%. So I think with their blessing, I was able to be like, okay, I think this is what I want, you know?
The journey of a singer or a performer or an artist is normally not easy anyway. And I can imagine that it would have been harder given the fact that we are Asian. Tell me about that journey.
It felt very lonely. You know, like as I'm sure you can, you know, relate, there are a lot of things where you feel like the trailblazer of your profession. And it's not just being Asian, it's like Asian woman living in North America or whatever. You're a minority in so many ways, and a lot of people, I think, where I'm from, a lot of people have the privilege of like looking around and seeing representation and seeing themselves like, oh yeah, well, my aunt did this, of course I can do this, or my dad did that, I can do this. And for me, that representation was completely lacking, and it felt very lonely as I was trying to find how to do it. You know, there wasn't a rule book on how to become an artist and a singer and a musician. So, you know, through that loneliness, I think I found a lot of people in my community that were going through a similar thing from different backgrounds, who were after the same thing, who really cared about art and expression and being authentic, and just aligning with those people felt like the first time I felt like I really belonged in a place, you know, and felt even just, you know, that gave my life a little bit more of a purpose, you know. So yeah, it was lonely, and yeah, it kind of took some time. I've been in like a professional musician since I graduated from university. I've been gigging and doing all of that for a really long time. But I kind of lost my why after a while. I was gigging, I was, you know, making some money, I was playing, but I was kind of like, I don't know. It's not like I'm in this for the money, you know, like why am I still in this? And a couple years, about a year or two ago, I went through an extensive period of therapy and really dug into my roots and dug into like why I'm doing this and why I want to be an artist. And I think there's a lot of pain in my journey as an immigrant and assimilating to a new culture. And I think long story short, I feel like I owe it to like 11-year-old me to do this thing that she really loved. And I also owe it to like my niece and my nephew and like all the kids that want to see representation in the world. You know, someone like me doing what I love and being, you know, good at it and proud of it. So yeah, it's lonely, but it's up and down, but I'm, you know, I feel like it's a really beautiful process getting there.
Okay. I have seen times change, you know, from a time where I remember being a child and seeing Nancy Kwan on television and being just really blown away by that, to all of a sudden we're at a space where Michelle Yeoh won her Oscar and, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once won that Oscar.
Love that movie. And
Crazy Rich Asians, which I absolutely adore. Did it get easier after Asians began to break into the mainstream?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, because I think the gatekeepers of any industry will keep on feeding what they know to the public. They will keep on playing, you know, casting the same kinds of people, telling the same kinds of stories over and over and over again until someone goes, oh, let's do something different. And you know, like the rise of K-pop and just the movies that you were talking about, you know, I think that's so important because to kids, they're seeing such a, you know, a wide array of stories and, you know, just representation, and they're able to, it's not this thing where we're boxed into a certain thing, you know what I mean? It's a bit richer. There's so many different archetypes now for an Asian character or artist, you know? So absolutely it's helped, yeah.
So is there an incident in your music career that you refer back to as that defining moment where you say, you know what, that was really good. I don't think that's going to come around again, but that was really good.
So I have a couple things. One thing is in Canada, there's a place called the Banff Centre for the Arts. It's in sort of close to the West Coast. It was my first time being around a group of artists from all over the world. So it wasn't one specific person, but there was someone from New Zealand who is a non-binary playwright. And then there was a Belgium piano player. And all of us were in this hub, each with our own studios in the mountains, in these little wooden studios with a piano and a guitar and recording gear. And we were surrounded by just the most beautiful nature, and it was the first time I had ever fully done the artist thing without having to think about making ends meet. And it changed my life. I thought, oh, this is what it's like to free flow and just live my life. And things came to me so quickly there. It's like the muse was there with me, and I was just praying to it, and I was like, it just, I wrote so much, and I created so much in that space, and being around so many different kinds of artists there, it changed my life. And after I left there, I thought, I need to somehow figure out how to incorporate a piece of that into my life. So that was one thing. And then an artist who I saw live, who I am obsessed with, who really changed me, is this artist named Emily King. She's from New York. She's played in Toronto a bunch. I saw her last year, and I saw her a couple years back. And seeing her kind of, speaking on the representation thing a little bit earlier, hearing her was like, oh, I not just love your sound, but something about you really resonates with me. I didn't get a chance to meet her, but she actually shared a cover of mine, and I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, please share my video. But, yes, she probably is one of the artists that really shaped me, musically.
Okay, let's talk about your music.
Mm-hmm.
You're described as a pop R&B singer. Has that remained consistent? Is that what you want to do, or does it shift with the mood, or do you think it's going to change based on your life's influences and your flow?
Yeah, I think art's fluid, so I think it'll just be whatever's next. Yeah, pop R&B feels like what I've made so far, but I'm excited to see what's next. So this new album that I'm working on has a lot of, yes, pop and R&B influences, singer-songwriter, but a lot of folk instrumentation and vocal harmonies and arrangement. A little bit less, because when I think pop R&B these days, I think very produced. I'm really loving leaning into the organic instruments, like a real Rhodes, a real guitar, like the sound of like engineering and recording an instrument and recording it really well to, so that it sounds, like it has character. It sounds unique, Yeah, exactly. So my music, I'm finding I'm really loving like real drums, like grooves and people's feels, because the last project we made in our home studio. And, there's a certain vibe when you make something on your computer versus sitting in a room with someone and playing and feeling their feel, and then that energy bouncing off each other, moving together. And that really, in this project, I'm really trying to lean into that. Yeah.
So what is it like for you coming back to Asia for the first time as a performer? What are your feels?
So many feels. Oh my God. Every day I'm just like on the verge of like tears, but not like tears sad, just like tears because I'm feeling so much. Like the people here are so warm and passionate about what they do, and the people have been my favorite part of the city, and coming back and playing music feels like I'm coming home to myself. It feels like it's like true Chynna coming back, and like the puzzle, like the full circle moment, has like locked there. And yeah, just a lot of joy and a lot of just sitting back and taking mental images of snapshots of what's happening around me, because I know when I'm back home I'm going to be like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And Yeah, it's been it's an incredible honor to play these first shows in Taipei, and I hope it leads to a more extensive Asia tour. And it's been wonderful to be able to play music here. Yeah.
You were listening to Canadian-Taiwanese singer Chynna Lewis, and that does it for this week's edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Hope Go. Do join us again next time. Thank you for tuning in.